What is up, YouTube? Dots Gaming here, and today I'm bringing you guys my Magicka Nightblade PvE guide, the Eye of the Storm. This is the PvE build that I use whenever I am doing PvE, even though I am more of a PvPer. This is the build I use every time I play. I use Eye of the Storm for a different PvP build that I have, so I thought it would be a really cool concept to try to build a PvE build around it, even though most people do use Elemental Rage. I thought it would be a cool concept and a unique playstyle. And honestly, guys, I've been having a great time with it whenever I am PvEing. Keep in mind, this guide is for general PvE and veteran dungeons mainly. This is not a Trials build, so if you're looking for a Trials build, please turn around now. This is not what you're looking for. This is going to be more of a veteran dungeon build that is not overly difficult to acquire, that, in my opinion, will still perform very well. This is, like I said, when I PvE, this is what I use. Again, trying to focus around gear sets that are not overly difficult to acquire, but will still perform. Now, if you want to read this guide instead of watching it, please click the link below in the description to go to dotsgaming.com to read this guide if you are not in the mood to watch this. But if you want to watch it, then please stay tuned for more information. And moving into said information, we are going to start with the gear sets. Now, what makes this build work as well as it does, in my opinion, pairing with Eye of the Storm, is Grothdar. When you deal damage, you have a 10% chance to create lava pools that swirl around you, dealing flame damage to all enemies within 8 meters of you every second for 5 seconds, and this can occur every 10 seconds. So with Eye of the Storm following you around, dealing massive amounts of damage, and Grothdar procced, dealing even more damage, you just have a torrent of area of effect damage with your character in the center of it. So you can just walk around and just wreak havoc on packs. It's really, really strong. You absolutely mow stuff down, and it is, in my opinion, what makes this work as well as it does. Now, besides Grothdar, I also run 5 pieces of Julianos. Julianos, in my opinion, is one of the best PvE sets, general PvE sets for Magicka Nightblade. It's very, very solid. It may not always rank the top based on the based on the patches that come by, but Julianos is always a solid contender and is part of the reason why I run 5 pieces of it, so that I know, as the balance changes come and go, I'll still have a solid gear set. And then the third set I run 3 pieces of Willpower, and that is all on my jewelry. In terms of the staves, I run a lightning staff on my front bar, and although this does say sharpened, it should be infused. And then on my back bar, I run a flame staff, also Julianos. Now, I have a dead piece of gear. It is my legs. I have Seducers. The reason I have Seducer's legs is because if you do not have Grothdar, I would recommend, instead of running Grothdar, you put, sub this in with Seducer's helmet, Seducer's shoulders, and then Seducer's legs. So you'll be running 3 pieces of Seducers instead of having Grothdar. So that's why I have the Seducer legs left over, but you can put whatever you want here for the legs, if for that dead slot. Now, in terms of weights and stuff, everything is for this 5 pieces of light. You have 1 piece of heavy on the chest, and you have medium legs. All of the traits should be divines on the gear, Magicka Enchanted. For the necklaces, I run 2 healthy necklaces because I want to make sure that I'm able to survive dungeon mechanics if I do get hit. You can run 2 or 3 arcane rings if you want to, arcane jewelry. I like to run 2 healthy and 1 arcane. You can really kind of mix and match the traits however you want it and however you feel comfortable playing, but I would recommend running spell damage enchants on all the jewelry. The reason we run a infused, not sharpened, I should be running infused, weapon damage enchanted lightning staff on your front bar is because that gives you a massive amount of spell damage when it's infused on your front bar. Just buffs your damage really, really well. And having the lightning staff means that all of your area of effect damaging abilities are going to deal more damage. So having the Eye of the Storm and Grothdar and a lightning staff makes massive, massive, massive amounts of AoE on your front bar. Would recommend running a front bar lightning staff. And then for the back bar fire staff, I run a flame damage enchant. Again, this should be either, I think, infused or Nirnhoned is the next best in slot. But again, I still have sharpened left over from last time, and because this is my PvE build, I don't really care overly too much about updating it, because I am mainly, like I said, a PvPer. But I do run a flame damage enchant on this instead of I mainly run a flame damage enchant on this back bar. Now, in terms of our abilities, our front bar, now this should not be Elemental Drain. This should not be Elemental Drain. This should be something else, but I'm using a substitute for PvP, so let me just Let me sub that in real fast. So our spammable is Swallow Soul, where you steal an enemy's life force, dealing magic damage and healing you for the damage inflicted every 2 seconds for 10 seconds. And you get Minor Vitality while slotted. Swallow Soul is a very strong, very cheap spammable. Part of the reason why Magic and Nightblades have such good single target DPS is the fact that our spammable basically costs no resources and deals a good chunk of damage. So this is going to be the spammable you're going to want to be running, and most people for any sort of Destro builds will be running Swallow Soul. I would recommend Swallow Soul over Funnel Health, but that is just me. You can run Funnel Health if you feel like your group needs the extra healing, but I think having yourself with that Minor Vitality, especially for a general PvE build, I think running Swallow Soul is better. This should not be Leeching Strikes. This should be Siphoning Strikes. So your light and heavy attacks are going to heal you and restore Magicka for 20 seconds, and you're going to restore an additional Magicka when the effect ends based on the length of time that Siphoning Strikes was active. This is going to really help you stay sustained between your lightning heavy attacks in AoE situations and having Siphoning Strikes. You are going to be able to keep yourself sustained relatively well. So that is my main sustain ability. Then we have Merciless Resolve, the main buff of the Magic and Nightblade, where you give yourself Minor Berserk, and then after hitting 5 light or heavy attacks, this ability changes to Assassin's Will, allowing you to fire a single shot, dealing 15 to 16k magic damage, and reducing your target's movement speed by 40% for 3 seconds. You're going to want to proc this optimally at least 2 times per cast. I'm going to go over more in the rotation later in the video, but optimally you would like to try to get this 2 times per cast. 2 procs of Assassin's Will per cast. Next, I run Hardest Magicka, which gives you a damage shield for 6 seconds, and while active, up to 3 times. When spell damage is absorbed, you restore Magicka, and each piece of light armor increases the Magicka restored by 6%. This gives you a damage shield to help keep yourself alive. You have heals taking in from Swallow Soul. Hardest Magicka acts as not only another source of resource regeneration, but acts as a shield to help you stay alive. We also have Inner Light, which is mainly slotted for the passive effect. While slotted, your max magic is increased by 5%, and you gain Major Prophecy, increasing your spell critical by almost 2,200. So Inner Light is extremely good to have slotted. As you get more Mages Guild passes, you can press this to get Mind of the Guild and give you an empowerment proc. You also get the Mages Guild passives because you have Inner Light slotted. It's just mainly good for the passive stats that it brings to your character. And now the big thing that this build is focused around, Eye of the Storm, in this case, Eye of Lightning. Create a Cataclysmic Storm above you that builds after 2 seconds and then lays waste to all enemies nearby, dealing about 7.6k shock damage every second for 7 seconds. This is going to deal massive, massive, massive amounts of AoE, especially when Grothdar is procced. So I would highly recommend having this, especially, like I said, with the Lightning Staff, because of the fact that the Lightning Staff increases your damage done with area of effect abilities by 8%. So the Eye of the Storm Grothdar combo is really, really dirty on that front bar. Now on the back bar, we have the dot management here. We have Crippling Grasp. So the Crippling Grasp is going to be your main dot for the fight. It deals a little bit of magic damage initially, and then an additional 14k magic damage over time, and immobilizes your enemy. It's also your source of Major Expedition, and you can only have 1 active at a time. So Crippling Grasp is going to be, it's a super strong dot. It's one of the strongest dots in the game, so you need to, in my opinion, run it on your character. You also have Blockade of Fire. Slam your staff down to create a flaming barrier in front of you, dealing flame damage to enemies in the target area every 1 second, and burning enemies, take 20% more damage with this ability. So if an enemy has burning on him and then the Blockade of Fire hits, this will deal 20% more damage. Very, very, very strong for AoE pressure. We also have Twisted Path. Creates a corridor of shadow, dealing 1900 magic damage to enemies in the target area every second. And then while on the path and for 2 seconds after, you gain Major Expedition, increasing movement speed by 30%. So as you can see, between Twisting Path, Blockade of Fire, Eye of the Storm, and Grothdar, you are an AoE menace. You have also good single target damage with things like Swallow Soul, Merciless Resolve, and Crippling Grasp, and then Impale, throwing a magic blade with lethal precision to strike an enemy, dealing 4,200 magic damage, and it deals 300% more magic damage to targets at or below 25% health. So Impale is just going to be in your rotation whenever the target is below 25% health. It deals 300% more damage to targets below 25% more health, and it's just your execute. It is super, super strong, and we have it on the Flame Staff because your Flame Staff increases your damage done with single target abilities by 8%, which Impale is. So Impale is going to deal a shit ton of damage on this back bar. Again, Inner Light for the same reasons that I stated on the first bar. And then we also run Soul Harvest. And the main reason we run Soul Harvest is I use Soul Harvest when we're entering, maybe we're about to enter an execute phase, and I Soul Harvest and able to give me 20% more damage for 6 seconds. But it gives you massive amount of ultimate return because of the fact that anytime you kill an enemy, you gain 10 ult. It is super, super, super strong, and I highly recommend having it on your back bar. It is a very, very good ultimate. Between the increased damage, the amount of damage it does, and the fact that you gain ult back, it's a very strong ability for PvE. So as you can see, guys, the front bar is mainly your buff bar, spammable with Swallow Soul and Fire Off the Bow. The back bar is your dots and your execute. It's relatively straightforward, easy build to play, in my opinion. In terms of other stuff that we're looking at, for buff food, I run I am a vampire for this build, by the way, keep that in mind. I do that for the extra recovery that I gain. For buff food, I run Witch Mother's Potent Brew. For Mundus, I run the Apprentice. For race, I would recommend High Elf. I think High Elf is the best, but if you want to be a Breton or a Dark Elf, that works as well. But I am a huge High Elf fan, and I really think High Elf is the best for PvE, hands down. In terms of potions, I would recommend, if you are playing solo, you run Spell Power Pots, because I'm sure you noticed that you do not have a source of spell power in this build. If you want a source of spell power, you could always pop out one of the the back bar Inner Light for, say, Degeneration. You could always do something like that. But I would recommend, if at all possible, if you're playing solo, try to run Spell Power Pots. Having major sorcery from your potions is, in my opinion, the best. But if you do not want that, I would recommend popping out one of the Inner Lights, probably the back bar Inner Light, for Degeneration, so that you still get those Mages Guild passives. So that's what I would recommend to you. Now, if you have a member in your group that can give you major sorcery, I would recommend running Spell Crit potions. Now, these are the wrong Spell Crit potions, so please ignore the potion I have up. The Spell Crit potion you're going to want is the one that increases your critical strike damage, not this one that gives you Health Magicka and Major Prophecy, because you get Major Prophecy already from Inner Light. You're going to want the one that increases your Spell Crit damage. That is going to be the one that you want to run in group play if you have a person on your team giving you major sorcery. Now, in terms of stats that we're looking at, because people inevitably ask me about stats, we have about 40k max magic. Keep in mind, guys, I am only CP312. All right, I am only CP312. Being a content creator, I don't really have a shit ton of time to bang out some CP, but I am 312, and this is what my current stats look like. I have about 40k max magicka, about 17.5k max health, 10k stam, 2400 spell damage. This is my front bar, by the way. We have about 11k spell resist, 10k physical resist, 1282 magic recovery, 214 health recovery, 663 stam recovery. We have about 51.3% spell critical, and that's all the main stuff that we care about. Now, in terms of champion points, guys, my champion points are set up for PvP. My champion points, truth be told, are set up for PvP. They are not set up for PvE. I did, though, write out the champion points you are going to want to run on my website. I'm going to have the champion point breakdown for this build in the description below. I will have a 300 champion point setup, as well as a 660 champion point setup. So about, once you get all your max stats, as well as when you get to the end of the game and you are at CP cap. In terms of passives, because I know I always do get asked about this a lot, in terms of passives, you want all class passives. You always want your class passives. You also want all the Destro passives. You want all just the Destro passives, excuse me. You want all of your light armor passives, all of your medium armor passives, except for agility, because you get no use out of it. These top 3 heavy armor passives, you want all of your vampire passives, except for you don't need Blood Ritual and Savage Feeding. You want all your Mages Guild passives. I'm slacking off on my Mages Guild. You want all of your Undaunted passives. And you want all of your racial passives. And then finally, last but not least, you also want medicinal use from alchemy. Those are the main passives you are looking for. Now, in terms of rotation, guys, I also have the rotation listed on the website, but I will discuss it with you guys right now. For an AoE situation, you want to apply Merciless Resolve, and you want to apply Siphoning Attacks pre-fight. You're going to start on your back bar, and you're going to use Elemental Blockade, Light Attack. You're going to Crippling Rasp, Light Attack, Twisting Path, Weapon Swap, and then if Eye of the Storm is available, use it. Otherwise, you're going to just spam heavy attacks. And then about a second or two before Elemental Blockade ends, you're going to swap back to your back bar, and then you're just going to rinse and repeat. So it's basically kind of like the way I have my bar set up. A lot of times in my combat, I end up just using Crippling Grasp, Elemental Blockade, and then Twisting Path. So I just go like 1, 2, 3, Weapon Swap, and then, you know, Lightning Attack spam. Now that is for an AoE situation. For a single target situation, it is the same exact thing, except for after your weapon swap, if Light of the Storm, you know, if Eye of the Storm is available, obviously use it, but then if Eye of the Storm isn't available, you're going to Light Attack, Swallow Soul, Light Attack, Swallow Soul, Light Attack, Swallow Soul, until Assassin's Will procs, and then fire the Spectral Bow. And you're just going to rinse and repeat. So you're just going to keep firing your Light Attack, Swallow Souls, keep proccing your Assassin's Will, and refresh Assassin's Will after you cast it twice. Obviously, you're also going to want to reapply siphoning attacks whenever it runs out. But with the single target rotation, it's basically lay down all your AoE, go into the Swallow Soul Light Attack spam, and then when you need to reapply your dots, swap back, you know, apply your dots again, move back to your front bar, and just keep, you know, Swallow Soul Light Attack. That's going to be your filler, basically, Swallow Soul Light Attack. And like I said, fire off the bow. You should be getting up to 2 bow shots. Up to 2 bow shots per buff. And that is what the rotation looks like, guys. It's really not overly that difficult of a build. I wanted to try to put something together that was relatively simple to use and really, really straightforward. You know, 1, 2, 3 on the back bar, and then Light Attack, Swallow Soul until you have Merciless Resolve up. And guys, honestly, this build works very, very, very well for my PvE needs, and I really would recommend giving it a shot. If you, like I said, guys, want to read this guide, I would recommend go checking out dotsgaming.com. It is listed in the description below. But that is it for me today, guys. I hope you enjoy the Eye of the Storm build, giving it a shot. It is a relatively easy build to acquire and is very, very effective, so I would recommend giving it a go. If you, of course, like this build, guys, I would appreciate if you hit the like button underneath the video. And for more amazing ESO content, like this video, for example, please hit that sub button and, of course, hit the little bell next to it to always get notifications as to when I do anything on YouTube. Thanks again for watching this video, guys. I'm Dots Gaming, and I will see you all next time.